Crystal chandeliers cast dazzling light across the lavish concert hall in the heart of New York. Sparkling evening gowns, glasses of champagne shimmering, and the lively laughter of high society filled the air. Tonight, a fundraising concert was underway in the venerable theater, where only the elite were deemed worthy of attending. But in a dim corner behind the red velvet seats, a lanky teenage boy quietly straightened chairs and picked up discarded programs from the floor. Ethan Parker, 16 years old, the son of the theater's parking attendant. No sharp suit, no feigned smile, just a shirt frayed at the collar and hands roughened by helping his father earn a living. At that moment, Richard Kingsley, a notorious real estate mogul so wealthy that a single pen stroke from him could reshape the city, happened to notice the boy. He tilted his head back and sneered, a sneer both contemptuous and deliberately loud enough for the whole hall to hear. "Hey, kid, have you ever dared to touch this grand piano? Or in your slums, do you only bang on pots and pans?" The entire hall fell silent for a beat, then erupted in laughter. Some whispered snide remarks, others glanced over eagerly, as if waiting for the humiliation to begin. Richard stepped closer, slapped the polished Steinway worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, his tone taunting. "Come on, be brave, play us a piece, let this hall be entertained for once." He was sure the parking boy wouldn't know what to do but tremble. Then become tonight's entertainment, but in Ethan's eyes, a strange light flickered to life. Ethan Parker, 16 years old, a boy with a thin frame, features perpetually touched by sadness, and deep black eyes that seemed to see through everything. Ethan was quiet, mostly observing in silence, but anyone who met that gaze sensed something different. His mother passed away when he was only 8. His father, Samuel Parker, worked as the parking attendant at the theater, wearing a faded gray uniform, living quietly in a class few bothered to notice. The two of them shared a shabby little apartment, with peeling walls and windows that creaked every time the cold monsoon wind blew in. In those dire circumstances, dreams were luxury, but Ethan harbored one: music. He had no money for lessons, no teacher. The only thing he owned was an old, discarded electric piano found in a dump, its keys chipped, some no longer chiming, yet Ethan spent many nights tinkering with it, teaching himself to replace strings, even patching broken plastic pieces with tape, just so he could coax a few more notes from it. When other children slept, Ethan pulled out his notebook and sat under the flickering desk lamp. He snuck into the library and listened to every classical CD, then painstakingly transcribed scores, sometimes dozens of pages long, by hand. Beethoven, Chopin, Rachmaninoff, names that were more than composers to him. They were kindred spirits, beacons lighting his path. By contrast, Richard Kingsley embodied another world entirely. Born into luxury, he often boastfully mentioned that his daughter attended Juilliard, the most prestigious music school. To Richard, music was not life breath or salvation, it was a social tool, a ticket to exclusive parties. And that night, amidst the glowing lights of the hall, Richard threw down a contemptuous challenge. "If this brat can play even a decent note, I'll donate an extra $50,000 to the fund. But if not, at least we'll all have a show tonight." The whole audience erupted in laughter, but Ethan did not. He bowed his head, his hands trembling slightly, then clenched them tight. In that dark gaze of his, for the first time, a fierce resolve ignited. The room fell silent. Curious eyes and whispered mockery still lingered in the air. Ethan sat down in front of the gleaming Steinway grand piano. His hands were trembling, not from fear, but because he knew this moment could change everything. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes, and then his fingers touched the keys. The first note rang out, soft as a whisper, but almost immediately, the melody surged like a waterfall. Not the clumsy, hesitant notes everyone expected, but full, powerful chords. Ethan was playing Chopin's Ballade No. 1, one of the most difficult pieces in piano history. The hall was stunned into silence. The mocking laughter disappeared, leaving only the sound of the piano echoing through the space. Ethan's fingers moved so quickly it seemed unreal, yet they were fluid, precise, and full of emotion. The music did not just come from the piano. It flowed from his heart, carrying all the pain, all the longing to rise above his fate. Some guests who understood music began to murmur, "That is not some parroted piece. This is the technique of a real artist." Others let out soft gasps, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Richard Kingsley, sprawled across the front row, tried to chuckle it off at first. "Beginner's luck," he muttered, but with every passing note, his confidence wavered, his forehead furrowed, lips pressed tight, as if trying to suppress the applause he knew was coming. Ethan did not stop. He improvised through certain passages, adding his own touches, until the piece no longer felt like pure Chopin, but Ethan Parker, a new voice, a new soul. And when the final chord rang out, the entire hall seemed to hold its breath. No one was thinking of a joke anymore. They had just witnessed something far greater, the arrival of a rare and undeniable talent. The music was not over. As the last echoes of Chopin faded, Ethan suddenly shifted tempo. His fingers danced with intensity, launching into a completely different energy. Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, from soft to electrifying, from sorrowful to dazzling, every note poured out like fire, sweeping the audience into a storm. The atmosphere in the hall transformed. Heads leaned forward toward the stage. Guests who had once looked indifferent now closed their eyes, nodding to the rhythm. A few began to cry, not even understanding why the sound of a poor boy's piano could strike so deeply at their hearts. And within that whirlwind of music, memories began to resurface. Ethan at 10, standing outside the music room door at school. He silently memorized the position of every student's fingers through a crack in the door. He was not allowed inside, but his sharp visual memory let him recreate every note in his mind. Ethan at 12, alone in the dark apartment while his father worked the night shift. He sat before the broken key electric piano, eyes closed, imagining the missing sounds, night after night, hundreds, thousands of times, until his hands learned to speak for the silent keys. Ethan at 14, secretly borrowing the library card to listen to dozens of classical CDs. He transcribed everything by ear, line after line, page after page. No teacher, no guidance, only patience, and a love that never faded. Ellipsis. The final note exploded in a blaze of sound. The hall erupted. The audience leapt to their feet, clapping until their hands turned red. In the front row, Richard Kingsley sat pale. He slammed his hand on the seat and growled, "That's enough. This charade ends now. Clearly someone secretly trained that boy and staged this to humiliate me." His words brought the room to a halt, but then a deep, composed female voice rang out, "I'm afraid you are mistaken, Richard." The woman who stood was Clara Monroe, a renowned music critic and a professor who had taught for 3 decades at Juilliard. She stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Ethan. "This young man plays with the technique and soul of a prodigy. In 30 years, I have never seen anyone self-taught reach this level. This is no performance, this is genius." Richard's face turned crimson. He snarled, desperate to cling to his power. "A parking lot boy will never surpass my daughter. Music belongs to the upper class, not to these lowlifes." His words landed, heavy and venomous, but this time, no one laughed. Everyone turned toward Richard, with eyes full of contempt. As for Ethan, he said nothing. He only clenched his hands tighter, his eyes glowing with quiet pride. The murmurs swelled for a moment, then fell silent as Ethan placed his hands back on the keys. No argument, no retort. He let the music speak for him. A gentle melody rose, like a whispered comfort, gradually building until it soared in a final explosive chord. The room stood still for a few seconds, frozen in awe. Then suddenly, the entire audience shot to their feet, thunderous applause erupting like a storm. Some shouted, "Bravo!" Others were in tears, embracing one another, overwhelmed with emotion. No one remembered the mockery Richard had hoped for. All that remained was absolute admiration for the parking lot boy. Clara Monroe stepped onto the stage, her voice echoing clearly, "Ethan, if you are willing, I will personally sponsor you into Juilliard. A full scholarship, starting today." The hall erupted again. No one looked at Ethan as a poor kid anymore. He stood there as a true artist. Stepping into the light, in a corner of the hall, Richard Kingsley sat frozen. Those who had once laughed along with him now turned their backs, leaving him to stand alone, awkward, exposed, and irrelevant. There was no applause for him, only scornful stares. At the very back row, Ethan's father slowly rose to his feet. Tears streamed down his sun-worn face as his rough hands clapped along with the crowd. A lifetime of struggle, and never had he imagined a day when his son would be honored like this. Ethan bowed, then lifted his head to look directly at Richard. His voice was low, but steady. Music has no rank or class. It only has hearts that are willing to listen. And once more, the entire hall erupted. 6 months after that fateful night, a new door had opened for Ethan Parker. He became a student at Juilliard on a full scholarship, his name appearing in concerts both large and small across New York. But Ethan never forgot where he came from. Every weekend, he returned to his old neighborhood, where he ran free music classes for underprivileged children. In a tiny room, the sound of piano blended with bright, joyful laughter. He wanted them to understand, talent does not wait for status, and dreams know no boundaries. Ethan's father, now with a more stable job at the very theater where it all began, hung a framed photo of his son on their apartment wall. He looked at it every evening, smiling as if it brought peace after a lifetime of hardship. And Richard Kingsley, after that night, his reputation collapsed. The upper class turned their backs on him. His daughter failed her audition for the orchestra, and Richard himself became a symbol of blind arrogance. The once feared name now lived on only as a bitter cautionary tale. Ethan's story spread across social media, shared by millions, touching millions of hearts. He became a living testament to the truth, determination, and passion. Not wealth or status are the keys to greatness, and the message that echoed in every heart: the arrogance of the wealthy only reveals their emptiness. Only true talent and a sincere heart can reach the soul. If you believe that stories like Ethan's deserve to be told more often, consider subscribing to this channel. Let us spread faith in justice, in human resilience, and in the power of dreams that rise beyond adversity.